Today, I want to talk about something that you may well be familiar with, at least the name, the ancient paths. You might be familiar with the scripture that I'm going to read from Jeremiah 6. Ask for the ancient paths. So, what are the ancient paths if we are to ask for them? And again, we're kind of hampered in our understanding by the English words that we've used to translate this. Ancient, like the ancient paths, is that talking about how people used to live? There's a whole host of things that people used to do in kind of like the society that we see pictured here. Is that what we're to return to, or is it something different? So the scripture that I was talking about, Jeremiah 6, 16 to 17 says, "Thus said Jehovah, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the ancient paths where the good way is, and walk in it, and find rest for your souls." But they said, "We do not walk in it." So it says, stand in the ways, and that is the Hebrew derakim, which is the plural of what we see for the way here, the good way. That word is derek. So a way is kind of the way that you traverse from one place to another. And the word that is used for paths here means something like something that you walk on. So stand in the ways, and they're the way that you get from A to B, and ask for, when you're in the way from one place to another, ask for the ancient, and we'll look at that word, olam, ways to walk upon, means something like that. But when you see what the word olam means, you'll get a better idea. So this is kind of saying ask for the good way to walk. When you are in the way or on the way, ask for the good paths by which to travel on your way. And I raised up watchmen over you and said, listen to the sound of the ram's horn. But they said, we do not listen. So Jehovah says to them that he has raised up watchmen to sound the ram's horn. And what that means is that an alarm sound was called. But they said, no, we're not listening to your warnings. We're not listening to your alarms. We have no interest in these ancient paths. They said, we will not walk in on these ancient paths in the way. We won't do that. So this is the word olam. And you see that here it says long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, ever, everlasting, words like that. That's how Blue Letter Bible understand this word. Actually, you get more from the actual definition rather than someone's understanding of it. Properly even concealed. That's what it means. You see here that it talks about the vanishing point. So this word olam is used, and it speaks of a time that is concealed from us. like the concept of a vanishing point. So when you talk about something old, using the word olam, it's kind of in a time that we can't see, that we don't have access to. And the same when the word olam is used of the future. It's not always just used for the past or the future. Sometimes you get adolam, and the word ad means something similar to olam. So it's what is got across by adolam is kind of like forever, an enduring period of time. But when you speak of a past point or a future point as olam, you're saying that it's so far off that it can't be seen, or it can't be seen for whatever reason. It is concealed from us. And as limited beings at a limited point in time, the past is concealed from us, the future is concealed from us. It, of course, is not concealed to Yahovah, but this is what the ancient paths are. It's from a point in the past which is concealed from us, and we'll see more what that point is, the ancient paths that we are to ask for. But if you speak of a time in the future, you might speak of the millennial kingdom, the future kingdom on the earth, as being in the olam, because we don't know what it's going to be like. We can't see that period of time. It is concealed from us. So it's not always saying that it's eternal or everlasting, just that that period of time is concealed. We see in Amos 9:11, in that day I shall raise up the booth of David, or the tabernacle, or the sukkah of David, which is fallen down, and I shall repair its breaches and raise up its ruins, and I shall build it as in the days of old. The word for day being yom, that phrase being yamei olam. So what it's saying is the days in the time in the past, those days which are now obscured from us. So you can translate it as old, and that is certainly a large part of what it is getting across. Old, ancient, those things certainly stand up as translations. Proverbs 8 verse 23 is interesting. This is wisdom anthropomorphized as a woman speaking, saying, I was set up ages ago, at the first, before the earth ever was. And that certainly would be a time which is concealed from us, the time before even the earth ever was. Ages ago, well, we get a funny idea of what it is saying when we have English translations, because we imagine that it's saying ages have passed since then in the Hebrew, but it's not really saying that. It's just saying, I was set up in the way back before anybody had been created at the first. I was in the olam. It's a useful kind of thing for us to be able to refer to. We don't really have anything like that in English, to have a concept of a period of time which is concealed. So we can't refer to what happened back in the olam, or what will happen in the olam. We see that the verb root Well, we see the verb root here is alam. What is the verb? What is being done? To conceal, to hide or be hidden, to be concealed or to be secret. That's what it's talking about. Something that is hidden from view, something which is concealed. Gesenius's entry on the word olam, it says here, properly what is hidden, especially hidden, time, long, the beginning or end of which is either uncertain or else not defined. So we've got a better idea now of exactly what is being spoken of here. So the ancient paths, more like the paths from a time that we can't see, that was in the past. You can see why they went with the word ancient rather than putting that. Psalm 24 verse 7 says, "Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors." Here's a good example of where olam is translated perhaps in a way that's not very helpful. It's not saying that the doors are everlasting or that they are eternal doors. What it is saying is that the doors are ancient, or the doors are from a time that is concealed or hidden. In Isaiah 58 verse 12 it says, "And those from among you shall build the old places," old waste places, or shall build the waste places from a time that is concealed from you in the past. "You shall raise up the foundations of many generations, and you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in." So for us, this will be true in the olam future. But this usage of the word olam doesn't really mean the old waste places. It kind of does, but if we understand the word olam, we get a better idea of what is being said. Jeremiah 18:11-15 says, "And now speak to the men of Yehudah and to the inhabitants of Yerushalayim, saying, Thus said Yehovah, see, I am forming evil and devising a plan against you. Return now, everyone from his evil way, and make your ways and your deeds good. But they shall say, It is no use, for we walk according to our own plans, and we do each one the stubbornness of his evil heart. Therefore, thus says Yehovah, ask now among the nations, who has heard the like of this? The maiden of Israel has done what is most horrible. Does the snow of Lebanon cease from the rock of the field, or the cool flowing waters from afar dry up? But my people have forgotten me, and have burned incense to what is false, and they have stumbled from their ways, from the ancient paths again." It's the same Hebrew phrase that was used in Jeremiah 6, to walk in paths and in a way not exalted. So he speaks of his people as having access to those ancient ways. Even though the time from which they came is obscured, they've got access to them through him. And we have access to the ancient paths through him as well. But his people, Judah, who Jeremiah was prophesying to, they wouldn't have any of it. They wouldn't walk in the way, which is to walk in Yehovah's ways. he says, make your ways and your deeds good, so that when you travel on the way, like on your way, you implement the ancient paths. You walk by the way of walking which is from the past, which is his Torah. So he's saying, look, I offered them these ancient paths, but instead they turned aside to what is false, and they've stumbled from their ways, from the ancient paths to walk in paths and in a way that is not exalted. Obviously his way, the way, is exalted. Their way was to walk after what is false. Again, if we think of that which is true as that which has some kind of substance and is stable and reliable, then we can see that what is false is the opposite of that. And what does it say? It says that they have stumbled from their ways, from the ancient paths that he has given them to walk in, the way of walking from the Olam, if you like. Jeremiah 2:4-13 speaks of this, speaks of how Yehovah sees what they have done. Hear the word of Yehovah, O house of Yaakov, and all the clans of the house of Israel. Thus said Yehovah, what unrighteousness have your fathers found in me, that they have gone far from me and went after worthlessness and become worthless. So they went after those things that had no substance. And did not they say, where is Yehovah who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, who led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and pits, through a land of drought and the shadow of death, a land that no one passed through and where no one dwelt. Then I brought you into a garden land to eat its fruit and its goodness. But when you entered, you defiled my land and made my inheritance an abomination. The priests did not say, where is Yehovah? And those who handled the Torah did not know me. And the shepherds transgressed against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal, and walked after matters that did not profit. So Yehovah's way of walking is a way that will profit us, a way that if they had walked in it, then everything would have been good for them. He gave them the land, he says, to eat its fruit and its goodness. Yehovah had good that they could have taken hold of and lived being blessed in the land. If they had just taken hold of those ancient paths, the paths from the Olam. If we take hold of the paths from the Olam, then the same will be true of us when we live in the kingdom. We will eat its fruit in goodness. But when they entered in, they defiled the land. They walked after things that were not good, things that brought about death. Therefore I still contend with you, declares Yehovah, and with your children's children I contend. For pass beyond the isles of Kittim, and see, and send to Kedar, and observe well, and see if there has been any like this. Has a nation changed its gods, which are not gods? But my people have changed my glory or esteem, my kavod, for that which does not profit. Be amazed, O heavens, at this, and be frightened, be utterly dried up, declares Yehovah. And what does he mean by be utterly dried up? For my people have done two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew out for themselves cisterns, cracked cisterns that do not hold water, or to put it in terms that we've been looking at recently, they chose that which has no stability, no permanence. So Yehovah says that they've done two evils, two things that they've done wrong. First, they forsook him, the source of stability, reliability, steadfastness. And then, in place of him, they put something that was not fit for purpose, something that was ra. So he says, they've changed my glory, or my esteem, my kavod in Hebrew, for that which does not profit. Again, you'll see throughout the scriptures this constant theme that they've taken what was good and they've replaced it with something new that is not good, something that men seem to be prone to do, thinking that they can replace what was old and was working with what is new that they've devised in their minds. But when it comes to Yehovah's word, we are to ask for the ancient paths, because of course Yehovah doesn't change. What he said in the beginning was good has not suddenly become bad. We are to ask, what did Yehovah say was wisdom at the beginning, because that is still wisdom now. In Isaiah 28, 9-13, it says, whom would he teach knowledge, and whom would he make to understand the message? Those weaned from milk, those taken from the breasts. For it is command upon command, command upon command, line upon line upon line, here a little, there a little. For with a foreign lip and a foreign tongue he speaks to this people, to whom he said, this is rest. Give rest to the weary, and this is the refreshing. But they would not hear. But the word of Yehovah was to them, command upon command, command upon command, line upon line upon line, here a little, there a little, so that they go and shall stumble backward and be broken and snared and taken captive. So the word of Yehovah is to be given kind of in this piecemeal fashion, command upon command, line upon line, and it is to build into an entire context of what he is saying, what he is communicating in his word, and it's to build into a great picture. But to those who will not listen, it is not of that effect. To them, having command upon command, line upon line, doesn't work out for them, because it's not all explained at once. They can't get that picture. They can't build it up slowly. And it kind of allows them to slip back, as it says here, stumble backward, because they're not laying a foundation and then building slowly on top of it. They are disobedient, they're rebellious. And so when you give it to them, little by little, here a little, there a little, it doesn't work out, because they don't know how to understand Yehovah's word. So he says, this is rest. Give rest to the weary. That's what his word is. That's what his Torah is. It is the good way in which to walk, in which to have shalom. Shalom will give you rest. And of course, this will bring to mind what Yeshua said, Come to me, all who labor and are burdened, and I shall give you rest. Yeshua, the Word made flesh. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. Exactly what was being promised in the book of Isaiah. For my yoke is gentle and my burden is light. So what people do is they think that Yeshua is coming and speaking something new here, but he is talking about things that have been said from the Olam. He is speaking the ancient paths, and we see mention of the yoke, his yoke, which is gentle, and his burden being light. We'll look at a verse that talks about that. But we see the yoke that Yehovah put on his people, his Torah, his instructions. Yeshua describes it as gentle, but to a people who don't want to be obedient to Yehovah, they want to break the yoke from off their necks. Jeremiah 2 verse 20 says, For of old you have broken your yoke and tore your bonds, and you said, I am not serving you, when on every high hill and under every green tree you lay down a whore. So they went after spiritual fornication, spiritual adultery. They were spiritually prostitutes, whores. So they break the yoke from off their neck. But Yeshua said, listen, my yoke is gentle, my burden is light. He doesn't say, I don't have a yoke. He just says, it's easy for you. He is, again, speaking of these ancient paths wherein the weary can find rest for their souls. They can find shalom just by walking in what is good. They find rest, which may seem a little bit counterintuitive. You give people a list of instructions that will be good for them. To a certain mindset, having to do those instructions is, burdensome. But if we do those instructions, then we will find shalom. As I say, it may sound counterintuitive. 1 John 5 verse 3 is a verse that addresses this. It says, For this is the love for Elohim, that we keep his commands, we walk in the ancient paths, and his commands are not burdensome. So we see this idea that his commands are not burdensome. His yoke is gentle, his burden is light. They're not burdensome to do. They are a blessing to us to do them. Jeremiah 31:31-33 says, See, the days are coming, declares Yehovah, when I shall make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yehovah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yehovah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So the rebellious people in the past, they heard the Torah and they said, we're not listening to that. We will not walk in the ancient paths. We haven't got any time for that. We've got our own things that we want to do. Here we have a prophecy of the new covenant. This passage is quoted in Hebrews 8 as speaking of the new covenant. And what does he say that he'll do? He'll put his Torah, his teaching, his direction, his instruction in our inward parts and write it on our hearts so that we will do the good things which he has purposed for us to do. We will return to those ancient paths and it will be good. Yehovah will not say, look, I gave you a fountain of living water. I am the fountain of living water. And you've forsaken it and gone after things that didn't profit. No longer will he say that, because we take his yoke on us, do those things which he has asked of us to do, and then he is happy, delighted to bless his people, and we will be blessed when we go to the land. We're blessed before we go to the land, but particularly when we go to the land and we live and we eat of its abundance, then we will be blessed in the way that Yehovah would have blessed Israel had they done that in the first place. Isaiah 32:13-18 says, thorns and thorn bushes come up over the ground of my people, indeed over all the houses of joy, the city of revelry. For the palace is abandoned, the crowded city deserted, hill and watchtower serve as caves forever. A joy of wild donkeys, a pasture of flocks, until the Spirit is poured upon us from on high, and the wilderness shall become garden land, and the garden land be reckoned as a forest. Then justice shall dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness remains in the garden land. The work of righteousness shall be shalom, and the service of righteousness be rest and safety. And there's that phrase, ad olam, forever. And my people shall dwell in a home of peace, or a home of shalom, and in safe dwellings, and in undisturbed resting places. So what we see is this great promise of Yehovah, that there will be this time of shalom on the earth, and that we get to be a part of it just by returning to the ancient paths, just by going back to what he said at the beginning, going back to the way of walking from the Olam. I see it as, from Yehovah's position, he's just like, I've told you this from the beginning. If only you would ask for what I said at the beginning, then all of this immense blessing will come upon you. But now you want to walk in your own way, you want to rebel, you want to forsake me, that is the fountain of living waters, and you want to hew out cisterns for yourself that hold no water, whether that be a religious system or whether that be your own kind of idea about how God works. Neither of them are things which can profit us to have. They might be nice ideas that kind of feel comfortable, but actually what they are cisterns that can hold no water because they're cracked, because they're broken. Yehovah willing, I'll see you next week.